Captain Jack Mitchell had been exploring space for 15 years, but nothing prepared him for what he saw floating in the darkness ahead. The alien ship was massive, bigger than any human city, but it looked like it was falling apart. Patches of different metals covered holes in its hull like bandages on old wounds. Strange lights flickered weakly along its surface, and Jack could tell this vessel was barely holding together. "Sir, we're getting a signal," said Lieutenant Kate Roberts, adjusting her headset. Her voice was quiet, almost respectful. It sounds desperate." The bridge of the human ship New Horizon went completely silent as the alien message played through their speakers. Even though their computer was translating the words, everyone could hear the sadness and exhaustion in the voice. It was the sound of people who had given up hope long ago. Dr. Billy Hayes looked up from his research console, his face pale. "I found them in our database. They're called the Kethmori. Jack, these people have been living in space for over 3,000 years. Their sun exploded and destroyed their home planet." First Officer Rebecca Stone shook her head in disbelief. 3,000 years? How is that even possible? How are they still alive? "Just barely," Billy replied, scrolling through more information. "And here's the worst part. The other alien races think they're cursed. They call them Starforsaken and refuse to help them. The Galactic Council has actually banned anyone from making contact." Jack watched through the window as smaller ships broke away from the giant vessel. These smaller craft looked even worse, their engines sputtering, their lights dimming. Through his binoculars, he could see the Kethmori themselves. They were tall and graceful, with skin that seemed almost transparent and glowed faintly like dying starlight. Some of them looked sick, and Jack realized with horror that many were probably children. "Captain, remember our orders," Rebecca warned him. "The council was very clear. We're not supposed to talk to them." Jack felt anger building in his chest. Here were people, because that's what they were, people who had been suffering for thousands of years while the entire galaxy turned away. He joined the space exploration program to discover new worlds and make contact with new species, not to follow orders that left innocents to die in the cold vacuum of space. "Kate, open a communication channel," he said firmly. "Sir, if we do this, we could get in serious trouble with the council," Rebecca said, but her voice showed she was already on his side. "I don't care about the council right now," Jack replied. "Look at them. They're dying out there, and we're the only ones who seem to care." The first Kethmori voice that came through their speakers was weak and surprised. Through the translator they heard, "Unknown vessel, why do you approach? All others flee from the Starforsaken." Jack took a deep breath and picked up the microphone. "This is Captain Jack Mitchell of the human exploration ship New Horizon. We're here to help." There was a long pause, and then something that might have been crying came through the speakers. "Help? No one has offered help in so long. Are you certain? We bring only misfortune, or so the galaxy believes." "The galaxy is wrong," Jack said simply. "Tell us what you need." Over the next several hours, the New Horizon crew learned the full scope of the Kethmori tragedy. Their generation ships were failing after millennia of constant use. Their population was slowly dying as life support systems broke down faster than they could be repaired. Children were being born weaker with each generation, and their food supplies were nearly exhausted. But what broke Jack's heart most was learning that they had been turned away from every populated system they'd approached for the last 500 years. Some species had actually fired warning shots to make them leave faster. Dr. Hayes discovered something incredible while studying their ship's design. "Jack, these people aren't just refugees. They're incredibly advanced. Look at how they've managed to survive in deep space for 3 millennia. They understand things about stellar physics and space navigation that we can't even imagine." As night fell on the New Horizon, Jack made a decision that would change everything. He sent a message to Earth Command, requesting permission to escort the Kethmori to human space. He knew it would cause problems, but he also knew it was the right thing to do. "Sir," Kate said quietly, "the other Kethmori ships are approaching. There are dozens of them, tens of thousands of people." Jack nodded, watching the fleet of ancient, damaged vessels slowly gathering around his ship. Each one carried families who had known nothing but the emptiness of space for generations. Children who had never seen a sunrise or felt solid ground under their feet. "Then we'll help them all," he said. "Send word to Earth. Tell them we found people who need our help. And we're bringing them home." 3 months had passed since Captain Jack Mitchell first encountered the Keth Mori, and now Ambassador David Campbell sat in the most uncomfortable chair of his life. The Galactic Council's disciplinary chamber felt more like a courtroom than a place for diplomacy. Alien faces stared down at him from elevated platforms, their expressions ranging from angry to disgusted. "The humans have committed an unforgivable act," declared the Veltar representative, her crystal-like features sharp with fury. "They have welcomed the cursed ones into their space. They invite catastrophe upon the entire galaxy." David kept his voice calm and steady, even though inside he was furious. "The Keth Mori aren't cursed. They're refugees who have been suffering for thousands of years, while everyone else looked the other way." The Zephyrian Council members' tentacles writhed with agitation. "You do not understand the ancient warnings. Those touched by stellar death bring misfortune. This is known throughout the galaxy." "What's known," David replied firmly, "is that you've all been too afraid and superstitious to help people in desperate need." Back on Earth, Admiral Patricia Wells stood in the war room, studying reports that made her both proud and worried. 17 human colonies had volunteered to take in Keth Mori families. Despite the massive problems this was causing, the economic sanctions are getting worse, reported Colonel Tommy Barnes, pointing to charts showing plummeting trade numbers. The Council has cut off all technology exchanges. Some species are threatening to completely blockade human space. Patricia looked at the holographic displays, showing new settlements being built on worlds like New Vancouver and Terra Nova. Human engineers were working around the clock to create special environments where the Keth Mori could survive and thrive. "Let them try to blockade us," she said with determination. "Humans didn't get this far by backing down from bullies." Meanwhile, on the farming world of Green Haven, Mary Johnson was experiencing something wonderful. She watched Keth Mori children playing with human kids in the specially built habitat domes scattered across her property. The alien children's laughter sounded like gentle wind chimes, but happiness was something everyone could understand. Her neighbor Bob Clark walked over, shaking his head as he looked at the strange new structures dotting their familiar landscape. "Are you really sure about this, Mary? The entire galaxy thinks we're making a huge mistake." Mary smiled as she watched a young Keth Mori girl teaching human children how to create beautiful patterns of light with hand movements that seemed almost like dancing. "You know what, Bob? Sometimes the whole galaxy can be wrong. Sometimes it takes regular folks like us to show everyone what being decent human beings really means." The changes weren't easy. Human colonies had to completely redesign their infrastructure. The Keth Mori needed different atmospheric pressures and specialized lighting that mimicked the stellar radiation they were used to. Food had to be grown in new ways, and communication required patience as both species learned to understand each other. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, factory worker Lisa Turner found herself working alongside Keth Mori refugees to build the habitat modules their people needed. At first, it was awkward. The Keth Mori moved differently, their long limbs graceful but unfamiliar. But gradually, Lisa realized they were incredibly skilled workers. "They had been fixing broken things for 3,000 years, she told her husband Pete over dinner. "These people can repair anything with practically nothing. We're actually learning from them." The political pressure kept mounting. President Michael Torres faced daily protests from some human groups who worried about the costs and risks of helping the Keth Mori. But he also saw the counter-protests, larger groups of humans who were proud of their species' compassion. "Sir, the Galactic Council is demanding we expel the Keth Mori within 30 days, his aide informed him during a tense cabinet meeting. "Tell the Council they can demand whatever they want," Torres replied. "We're not abandoning people who need our help." The media coverage was intense. News reporter Janet Williams broadcast from New Geneva, where the first major human Keth Mori settlement was taking shape. "What we're seeing here is unprecedented in galactic history," she reported. Two species working together, learning from each other, building something entirely new. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Some Kethmori were struggling with the idea of living on solid worlds after millennia in space. Others worried they were bringing disaster to their human hosts, just as the galaxy had always claimed. Elder Thanar, one of the oldest Kethmori survivors, spoke to a gathering of both species on New Vancouver. For 3,000 years, we believed we were cursed. We accepted that we deserved to wander alone in the dark. But humans have shown us something we have forgotten, that sometimes the universe isn't cruel by choice. Sometimes it's cruel because people choose to let it be. As the deadline from the Galactic Council approached, humanity faced a choice. They could give in to pressure and abandon their new friends, or they could stand firm and face whatever consequences came next. Admiral Wells made the decision that would define humanity's future in the galaxy. "We're not backing down," she announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "If the galaxy wants to punish us for being decent, then maybe it's time the galaxy learn what humans are really made of." Dr. Helen Foster couldn't believe what she was seeing in her laboratory aboard Research Station Kepler-7. Her Kethmori colleague, Velthara, was doing something that should have been impossible. With nothing but her hands and a device that looked like a crystal harp, she was actually controlling the movement of stellar plasma, the same super-hot material that burns inside stars. "How are you doing that?" Helen asked, watching in amazement as Velthara made the plasma dance in complex patterns. Velthara's glowing eyes reflected thousands of years of hard-earned knowledge. When your star dies and destroys your world, you learn to understand the songs that stars sing, Helen Foster. We have had 3,000 years to listen to the music of the cosmos. Helen realized she was witnessing something incredible. And we humans, we're good at adapting, at finding new ways to solve problems. Maybe together we can do things neither of us could do alone. Down in the engineering section, Lieutenant Commander Paul Watson was having his own revelation. He'd been working with Kethmori technicians to upgrade human ships, and the results were beyond anything he'd imagined. Ships that used to struggle to reach half the speed of light were now moving 3 times faster while using less fuel than ever before. "Look at this data," Paul called to his team, pointing at the displays that showed their latest test results. "They don't just understand gravity. They can actually bend space around stellar phenomena. We're not just learning new tricks here. We're discovering that everything we thought we knew about physics was just a beginning." The improvements were staggering. Human ships equipped with Kethmori technology could navigate through dangerous cosmic storms, dance around black holes, and travel distances that would have taken years in just weeks. But more importantly, the collaboration was changing both species in ways no one had expected. On Earth, General Harrison Blake was briefing the Global Defense Council about intelligence reports that were both exciting and concerning. "Other alien species are getting nervous," he reported, pointing to intercepted communications on a holographic display. "Human Kethmori collaboration is producing advances that they can't match or even understand." Secretary of Defense Carol Price studied the tactical information with growing satisfaction. "Good. Maybe they'll think twice about their prejudices when they realize what they've been missing all these years." The changes weren't just technological. In the outer colonies, Merchant Captain Rita Turner was piloting the first hybrid human Kethmori vessel through a nebula that would have been impossible to navigate before. The ship moved like it was dancing with the cosmic winds instead of fighting them. "The other species are demanding we share this technology with them," her communications officer Frank Evans reported from his station. Rita couldn't help but smirk. "Tell them we're still figuring it out ourselves. Maybe in a few decades we'll think about sharing, if they ask nicely and apologize for treating our friends like garbage." But the real magic was happening in the smaller moments. On New Geneva, human children were learning Kethmori light weaving alongside traditional subjects. Meanwhile, young Kethmori were discovering human concepts like team sports and group music making. Teacher Nancy Cooper watched her mixed classroom with wonder. "Yesterday, little Amy taught Zethic how to play hopscotch," she told her colleague. "Today, Zethic showed the whole class how to read star patterns to predict weather." These kids are growing up thinking this kind of cooperation is normal. The economic benefits were becoming impossible to ignore. Colonies that had volunteered to host Kethmori families were experiencing unprecedented prosperity. Keth Mori's understanding of stellar mechanics was revolutionizing energy production. Human adaptability was helping solve engineering problems that had puzzled the galaxy for centuries. Factory manager Joe Martinez on the industrial world of New Birmingham was seeing productivity increases of over 300%. The Keth Mori don't just fix things, he explained to visiting officials. They understand why things break in the first place. They've been making broken things work for 3,000 years. Meanwhile, we humans are good at coming up with crazy new ideas that somehow actually work. The cultural exchange was just as remarkable. Human music was being transformed by Keth Mori harmonic understanding, creating new art forms that could literally be felt across star systems. Keth Mori storytelling traditions were being preserved and shared through human digital networks, ensuring that 3 millennia of oral history would never be lost again. Dr. Amanda Chun at the Anthropology Institute was documenting changes neither species had expected. The Keth Mori are rediscovering hope, she reported. For the first time in thousands of years, they're making long-term plans. They're having more children. They're creating art again. Meanwhile, humans were becoming more thoughtful about their place in the cosmos. Working with a species that survived the death of their star had given humanity a deeper appreciation for how precious and fragile life could be. The Galactic Trade Commission was getting desperate. Species that had spent months condemning humanity for harboring the cursed Keth Mori were now quietly sending diplomatic messages asking about trade partnerships. They want access to our new shipping routes, reported diplomat Kevin Roberts. Apparently, ships that can navigate stellar phenomena safely are suddenly very valuable for interstellar commerce. President Torres smiled at the irony. Funny how quickly curse become convenient when there's profit involved. As the year progressed, it became clear that humanity and the Keth Mori weren't just helping each other survive. They were creating something entirely new together. Admiral Susan Crawford stood frozen on the bridge of her flagship Defiance, staring at the sensor readings that made her blood turn to ice. The dark matter storm stretched across 3 entire star systems, consuming everything in its path like a cosmic cancer. Planets, space stations, entire civilizations, all gone, leaving nothing but empty void behind. "Ma'am, we're getting desperate transmissions from the Galactic Council," reported Commander Andy Mitchell, his voice tight with disbelief. They're actually asking for our help." Susan almost laughed at the irony. The same alien species that spent the last year condemning humanity for helping the Keth Mori were now begging for assistance, as their most advanced defenses crumbled like paper against this cosmic nightmare. The storm wasn't just destroying matter, it was unmaking reality itself. Where thriving worlds once orbited their stars, now there was literally nothing. No debris, no radiation, no trace that anything had ever existed there at all. On the Joint Research Station Unity, Dr. Chris Kelly was working frantically alongside his Keth Mori partner Morthek. They hadn't slept in 3 days, surviving on coffee and pure determination as they raced against time to find a solution. The harmonic resonance field could theoretically collapse the storm, Chris explained to the emergency council session, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. But it requires perfect coordination between human gravity manipulation technology and Keth Mori's stellar harmonic abilities. The council chamber was packed with representatives from species who had refused to even acknowledge humanity's existence just months earlier. Now they hung on every word from the 2 species they had rejected and scorned. Counselor Velnara, the same alien who had voted to exile humanity from galactic civilization, leaned forward desperately. How many ships would you need for this operation? Captain Jenny Parker, representing the human fleet, looked around the chamber at faces that had once shown nothing but contempt. Every human vessel equipped with hybrid technology, and every Keth Mori capable of performing deep stellar harmonics. Basically, everyone we've got. The silence in the chamber was deafening. They were asking the 2 species they'd cast out to risk everything, their entire fleets, their most skilled people, their very survival, to save those who had forsaken them. Elder Threnoke of the Keth Mori spoke quietly, his ancient voice carrying the weight of 3,000 years of suffering. For millennia, we wandered the darkness alone, believing we were truly cursed. Only humanity offered us shelter, when the very stars seem turned against us. If we can save those who abandoned us, perhaps we can finally break the cycle of fear and abandonment that has poisoned the galaxy. The chamber remained silent as the implications sank in. The Kethmori, who had every reason to let their persecutors face destruction alone, were offering to risk their lives for those who had shown them no mercy. President Mike Torres stood up slowly, his words carrying the weight of humanity's decision. "We'll do it, not because you deserve our help after how you've treated us and our friends, but because saving lives is the right thing to do. That's what humans do. We help people, even when it's hard, even when those people have been cruel to us." The preparation was unlike anything ever attempted in galactic history. Human engineers worked around the clock to retrofit every available ship with the hybrid technology that combined human gravity manipulation with Kethmori harmonic systems. The Kethmori elders taught crash courses in stellar resonance to younger members of their species who had never learned the ancient arts. Captain Lisa Bradley commanded one of the human vessels being prepared for the mission. As she watched Kethmori technicians install their crystalline harmonic arrays throughout her ship, she couldn't help but think about how much had changed. A year ago, the galaxy told us these people were cursed, she said to her first officer, Pete Walker. Now there are only hope for survival. Pete nodded, watching a young Kethmori engineer explain the harmonic principles to their human crew. Maybe the real curse was the fear that kept everyone from working together. The dark matter storm continued expanding, now threatening the core worlds of 3 major civilizations. Refugee ships fled in panic as entire sectors were evacuated. The galaxy's most advanced weapons and shields had proven useless. Conventional technology simply couldn't touch something that unmade the very fabric of reality. Dr. Amanda Price, monitoring the storm from the scientific station, delivered regular updates that grew more dire by the hour. It's accelerating. At this rate, it'll reach the galactic core within 6 months. We're looking at the potential extinction of all known civilization. As human and Kethmori fleets gathered at the staging area, something unprecedented was happening. Crews from both species were working together with an efficiency that amazed even themselves. Humans brought their innovative problem-solving and adaptability, while Kethmori contributed their deep understanding of cosmic forces. The plan was dangerous beyond measure. They would need to create a resonance field powerful enough to collapse a phenomenon that had already consumed entire star systems. One miscalculation could destroy their entire combined fleet. But as Admiral Crawford looked out at the mixed armada of human and Kethmori vessels, she felt something she hadn't expected: hope. Fleet Admiral Rachel Stevens felt her heart pounding as she watched hundreds of human and Kethmori ships move into position around the dark matter storm. From her command vessel, she could see the cosmic nightmare that had already devoured 3 civilizations, a writhing mass of absolute darkness that seemed to eat light itself. "All stations report ready," announced Captain Scott Williams from his position at the tactical station. "Human gravity generators are synchronized with Kethmori harmonic arrays. We're as ready as we'll ever be." Through the massive view screen, Rachel could see the Kethmori vessels beginning something she'd never witnessed before: their ancient stellar song. It started as a low hum that seemed to vibrate to the hull of every ship, then grew into something hauntingly beautiful. The sound carried the memory of their dead homeworld, the pain of 3,000 years in exile, and now, incredibly, hope for the future. The human ships responded, their artificial gravity fields creating invisible waves in space-time itself. What had started as 2 separate technologies was becoming something entirely new, a harmony between species that had never been attempted before. "The resonance field is forming," whispered Dr. Amanda Foster from the science station, her voice filled with awe. "The storm is actually responding. It's starting to slow down." For 12 agonizing hours, both species worked in perfect coordination. Human crews pushed their gravity generators beyond safe limits, while Kethmori harmonic specialists sang until their voices grew hoarse. Some of the older Kethmori collapsed from exhaustion, but younger members stepped in without hesitation. Rachel watched her instruments as the impossible slowly became reality. The dark matter storm, which had consumed entire worlds, began to collapse inward. The boundary between destruction and creation blurred as the combined human Kethmori field transformed the cosmic destroyer into something beautiful. "It's working," Dr. Foster said, tears streaming down her face. The storm is dissipating. Look, it's turning into stellar nurseries. New stars are going to be born where that thing used to destroy everything. The aftermath was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where the cosmic nightmare had been, peaceful nebulae now drifted through space, glowed with the promise of future star formation. The terror that threatened all known civilization was gone, replaced by the birthplace of new worlds. In the Galactic Council chambers, the silence was deafening as species after species formally apologized to humanity and the Keth Mori. Counselor Velnara, who had led the charge against the humans, approached Ambassador Campbell with obvious shame written across her crystalline features. "We were completely wrong," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our fear and prejudice nearly cost us everything. How can we ever make this right?" David Campbell looked around the chamber at faces that had once shown nothing but contempt for humanity's compassion. "Fear makes us all smaller than we should be," he said quietly. "But fear doesn't have to define who we become. What matters now is what we do next." On New Geneva, the first permanent joint human Keth Mori city was taking shape in ways that amazed everyone who saw it. Human engineering had created artificial gravity fields that perfectly mimicked the stellar phenomena the Keth Mori remembered from their lost homeworld. Children of both species played together in parks where auroras danced overhead and gentle gravitational currents created floating gardens. Captain Jack Mitchell, now promoted to admiral after his role in first contacting the Keth Mori, stood with his alien friend Velthara watching the sunset over their shared city. The Keth Mori's luminescent skin caught the fading light, making her look like she was made of captured starshine. "You know," Velthara said softly, "the star Forsook my people once when our sun died and destroyed our world. For 3,000 years, we believed we were truly cursed, doomed to wander forever in the cold darkness between worlds." Jack nodded, remembering the desperate refugees he'd first encountered in that failing generation ship. "And now humanity has taught us that sometimes, when the stars abandon you, you can create your own light," she replied. "Together, we've learned that even in the darkest void, there's always something worth saving, always hope worth fighting for." The changes rippled throughout the galaxy. Species that had spent millennia isolated by fear and prejudice began reaching out to each other. The human example of compassion, combined with Keth Mori wisdom about survival and adaptation, created a new model for galactic civilization. Trade routes that had been closed for centuries reopened. Scientific collaborations that would have been unthinkable before became commonplace. Young beings from dozens of species began studying together on joint research stations, learning that differences in biology and culture could be sources of strength rather than reasons for fear. Dr. Helen Foster, now director of the Galactic Cooperation Institute, often told visitors about the moment everything changed. It started with one human captain who decided that helping people in need was more important than following orders, she would say, and it grew into something that saved us all. Above New Geneva, the first stars of evening began to appear, and for the first time in 3,000 years, the Keth Mori saw them not as cold, distant lights that had abandoned them, but as destinations waiting to welcome them home. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from reaching out to help those who need it most. The stars had forsaken the Keth Mori once, but humanity had embraced them, and from that embrace, a new constellation of hope had been born.